Welcome back to Secret Weapons. My name is Mark Johnston. If this is your first time around here, this is a YouTube channel where we do gear, demos, and reviews, as well as studio tips and tricks for leveling up your writing, production, and playing from the perspective of a guitar player working out of a home studio. If that's the kind of thing that might appeal to you, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and stick around for future videos. Today we're taking a look at the Silktone Fuzz Plus. For those of you not in the know, Silktone is an amp and pedal company from here in the greater Sacramento area, and so I'm a little bit biased towards liking their stuff. The owner and chief designer, Charles, is a friend of mine. Their headquarters are actually about 10 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now. So let's talk about the Fuzz Plus. This is the follow-up to their first ever pedal release, the Silktone Fuzz, and that was an interesting release that was very much a lot of people's favorite fuzz. I don't feel like I saw a lot of widespread adoption of it, but for the people who it was for, the people who wanted that particular flavor of vintage fuzz, you kind of couldn't do better than the original Silktone Fuzz with its really simple, straightforward, no tone control in sight fuzz approach, as well as the really novel and interesting bias control at the bottom with that little counter that kind of allows you to dial in exactly where you want this fuzz to sit. It basically allows you to rebias the transistors in this pedal to get you everything from voltage starved, kind of Velcro-y sounds all the way up through big, rich, blooming, massive fuzz textures. There's a really interesting kind of control scheme to both the original and this one, but improved for the Silktone Fuzz Plus, which is the volume, fuzz, and cleanup control. That cleanup being a way of kind of reintroducing sparkle and clarity and cleanliness into the signal. It'll bring down some volume, but it'll also add dynamic range and a little kind of different flavor to the circuit. New to this version is a more dynamic version of that cleanup, as well as the inclusion of two different EQ controls, a kind of low and high shelf kind of boost or cut. And that is really handy because it allows you to kind of pull more angular, gritty textures, warmer, rounder, softer textures, as well as allows you to kind of boost or really tighten up the low end, giving you more driving, more modern, and more vintage tonality. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm more drawn to the Fuzz Plus than I was to the original Fuzz. I saw the merit in it. I think it sounds great, but it was very much for fans of vintage flavors of fuzz, and I don't know that that's very often me. This new one gives you a lot more control over that, and as you heard on that intro, really fantastic, sparkling, glassy, clean textures as well. I mean, this is a fuzz pedal, and we mic'd up a proper amplifier and really went for something big, and I still found myself just kind of being drawn into how good all of the clean tones in this thing are, and it's the only thing we use for those cleans on that song. The final really noteworthy update from the original Fuzz to the Fuzz Plus is the inclusion of a raw switch. And if you've ever played or seen Silktone amplifiers in general, you'll know that the raw switch is something that kind of comes from their amp line, which is a way of bypassing the tone stack in the amp in favor of a much louder, hairier, grittier, and open-sounding, overdriven tone. So in this pedal, you can hit that raw switch and it'll bypass your EQ controls as well as that cleanup and just turn this thing into an absolute howling monster of a fuzz pedal. And this can be useful for a couple different purposes. It can be great for just getting the absolute most out of an already very loud and very fuzzy pedal, but it can also be used for kind of strategically gain staging this device, giving you access to your clean tone on its own, your engaged kind of low mid-gain thing, and then opening it all the way up for a screaming massive lead sound. So I think all of this is best heard, not explained. So let's go ahead and plug this thing in, get it running into the amplifier, and put it through its paces. So before we get into our sound samples, let's talk through our signal chain and the context we're working in. I am playing my Fender American 52 reissue Telecaster into the Silktone Fuzz Plus and into a Silktone amplifier, which is a 12-watt American Princeton style amp. We're miking it up with a 57 and a Royer 121 ribbon, and we're sending those into a Warm Audio WA273 preamp. We're going to go ahead and listen to our clean tone, and you'll notice it's pretty quiet, and that's because I have the gain staging on our preamps set for the fuzz, and this is a loud pedal. So these sound samples are going to jump in volume from clean to dirty very quickly. and with volume significantly below noon, fuzz at noon, and no cleanup, this is the Fuzz Plus. So as you can hear, there's a massive volume jump from pedal disengaged to the pedal engaged like this. And there's another volume jump that will come in the future as well. But for now, let's go ahead and with that volume at noon, listen to kind of like how far that gain range goes on the volume and gain knobs themselves. Bringing it back down to about 9:30, 10 o'clock, let's go ahead and walk through our gain range. The touch responsiveness of the Fuzz Plus is kind of one of the standout features in my opinion. The fact that with gain above noon and a decent amount of volume coming out of this thing. I mean, let's listen to our clean versus engaged signal really quick. Just a ridiculous kind of balancing between the two of those. And even within that context, just by changing my pick attack, not even adjusting any settings on my telly itself, I can go from like blistering distortion and fuzz sounds to like really glassy cleans. Let's go ahead and look at the other way that you can really clean this thing up by engaging with that cleanup control itself. go ahead and take that cleanup out, and then kind of dial back to a kind of comfortable distortion tone or fuzz tone. And give a listen to those high and low controls on this device. It gets incredibly dark when you totally minimize that low EQ shelf, but a thing that I've noticed is you can actually pull more distortion and fuzz sound out of this thing as you turn it up. So let's go ahead and take a look at this bias control down here at the bottom, which is an essential piece of kind of the texture of the fuzz and is the kind of thing that made the original fuzz before the Fuzz Plus such a beloved pedal for so many different people. So let's go ahead and take it to its kind of like maximum bias point right now, up in that kind of 7.5 volt range, and give it a listen for its stickiest sound. And the funny thing about bias is there's kind of sweet spots throughout, and turning it up all the way isn't necessarily the way to get the biggest sound. There's going to be different versions of big across the range. As we get down here to the kind of like 1 volt range, you're going to get into very broken, starved sounds. Which is a great place to introduce the raw switch on the other side of this fuzz, which can be used either as a kind of additional gain stage, almost like a lead boost kind of thing where it disengages your EQs and blows up the amp that you're running into. But in this context, it is also a effective way of getting a lot of great sound out of this starved mode right here. So let's engage raw, and then we'll kind of walk back up to a sweet spot. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you hit that like and subscribe button. Leave me a comment to know what you thought of the Fuzz Plus. Is this for you? Am I better at miking amps live in the room like I am right now, or should I go back to the aux? Because I also am feeling that kind of push and pull. I'd love to hear from you. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.